Let's get started. I am really excited today to welcome back Rabbi Emily Losben-Ostrov. She is a friend of La Asok. She's a member of the advisory committee of La Asok and has now taught Tikva through text a couple of times. In fact, she was one of the inaugural teachers of Tikva, I think, Emily, right? Like maybe the second or third week of Tikva. And the name Tikva through text might have even been your idea. I can't remember anymore.
I will take credit. Yes.
There we go. So Rabbi Emily Losben-Ostrov is from Wilmington, North Carolina, and I'm just going to turn things straight over to her. Take it away.
Great. Well, it's so wonderful to see some familiar faces and to meet some new people. I'm so excited to be with everyone. As always, both when I teach as well as when Rabbi Schreifer teaches, always want to start us off with our blessing for Torah study. So let me jump right into that, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. And let me know if anyone has any questions with anything. And I always love it if you want to actually even come off mute and we can say this together. I'll say the word, and then if you repeat it, makes it a little bit longer, but then we can hear the beautiful cacophony of our voices. And if you don't want to join in the Hebrew, that's fine. You can just say amen at the end, or you can say the words on mute. So here we go. Baruch,
Baruch.
Atah,
Atah.
Adonai,
Adonai.
Eloheinu,
Eloheinu.
Melech,
Melech.
Ha'olam,
Ha'olam.
Asher,
Asher.
Kishanu,
Kishanu.
B'mitzvotav,
B'mitzvotav.
V'tzivanu, La'asok, B'divrei Torah.
Torah.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with the words of Torah. And for that, let us all say,
Amen.
Amen. Wonderful. Well, friends, I am so excited to be with everyone. And as you may know, if you happened to look outside last night, you would have seen just a very small sliver of the moon, which reminds us that it is the beginning of the month. And we just came into the month of Shvat. And in this month of Shvat, we have the holiday of Tu Bishevat, which literally means the 15th of the month of Shvat. It's kind of like how we'll say July 4th instead of saying Independence Day. And what is the 15th of Shvat? Well, for us, it is known as the birthday of the trees. It is actually the holiday in which the trees are taxed. We don't know, or I should say not now, but biblically or Talmudically, we don't know exactly when a tree actually begins to bear fruit or when you would count it. So this way, for accounting purposes, all the trees get to be a year older on Tu Bishevat. And so today, though, and over the years, this has developed into a Jewish Earth Day, a mystical celebration as well. And I will actually say that it is probably one of my favorite holidays. I do get caught saying it's one of my favorite holidays for a lot of holidays, but this one really is. I promise you that. Thank you, Micah. This is also the accountant's holiday. I love that, Rabbi Streifer. So show of hands, by actual hands or signs, who has ever observed or celebrated Tu Bishevat before? Okay, great. So about half of you. And for those who are new to it, I'm so excited that I get to introduce you to it, and also so excited that we're going to talk about it. So Tu Bishevat, as I said, if it's the 15th, and if today is the 1st, so that means it's 15 days from now, but we're going to celebrate the themes of the earth. Now, our wonderful session on Thursdays, this concept of finding hope, finding tikva through our text. And so as Rabbi Schreifer promised, I'm going to show you a modern version of Talmud using some texts around Tu Bishevat. And then we're going to delve into the ones that interest you, and I have a few more. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And feel free to ask any questions. If you are a fellow fan of Tu Bishevat, please feel free to share any thoughts in the chat as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and, as I said, share my screen. Now, what I'm sharing, I'm very excited to share this with you. Some of you may be familiar with the RAC, the Religious Action Center, which is our the reform movement's social justice arm. I know not all of us are in the reform movement, but this is a document that was created by them a couple years ago to look like a piece of Talmud. So if you've ever studied Talmud, you'll know that we have the Mishnah and the Gemara in the middle, and then around the outsides, we have the commentaries. So here, and I want to give credit to who wrote it. I don't know exactly who put this together, so I'm just going to give the RAC the credit for that. And Rabbi Streifer will put the website for the RAC, rac.org, in the chat. They have lots of amazing resources, particularly lots of great sources on environmental justice. And so a lot of what we're talking about today is really a beautiful way in which we could see how our own Judaism can really work together with the concept of justice, environmental justice. So back to the text. So here, made up to look like a piece of Talmud, made up to look like a piece of text, we have a piece of Torah in the middle of this document, and then all around the sides, we have different commentary, both reflecting to this text, but also reflecting of our view. So how, by show of hands, can people see this pretty well? I know it's a little small for, okay, great. Carol, it's kind of so-so. What I'm gonna do is, let's start off by looking at the center, the text that we're basing this on, and then we'll, when we move around to the edges, I'll make it larger. I hope that'll be okay. And then from that, we will hopefully delve into this and talk a little bit about it. But I want to kind of start off with my premise with all of you today, which is that sometimes when we look at what is going on in our world right now, and I'm going to speak specifically about the climate and the environment, though we could talk about other things as well, we might sometimes lose hope. And so I hope that we will find some hope, some tikva, through looking at our sacred texts and what has been said about our texts and what our Jewish tradition teaches us in order to have hope, not only for ourselves, but for our environment, for our world, and to realize that we don't need to be hopeless, that we can take back some of the action and some of the power. So that's what we might say is the nechemta. That's kind of the ending piece, but I want to start with that to kind of frame how we're looking at it. So again, I encourage people to, you can come off mute and ask me any questions or put anything in the chat. And if it's okay, I'd love to call on you to help us read this. And also I will, most of what, if not everything we do today is going to just be in the English, but if anyone wants any of the resources in Hebrew or other languages, as always, I encourage you to look at Sefaria, where you will be able to find it. So someone want to volunteer to read the center text coming from Bereshit, which we're going to kind of look at our Talmud about? Okay, great. Thank you, Sarah.
And God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit trees yielding fruit after its kind, whose seed is on the earth." And it was so. And the earth blossomed with grass, herbs, and trees, and God saw that it was good. Bereshit 1:9 through 13.
Thank you. And so as a reminder, Bereshit, this is Genesis. This is our beginning story of how the world got to be. And for me, we know that during the story of creation, after everything, God says, God saw it and it was good. And so real quick, just want to give you guys an emotional check-in. Anybody ever walk in the woods or stand by trees or see flowers or eat a fruit and just really have that feeling of saying, it is good? Anybody have any deep connections? I'm seeing a lot of you raise your hand. I know for me, when I lived in Israel, which you'll see, I've got a picture of the wall behind me, and not just any picture, but if you notice, I made sure that I showed a picture with some of the greenery that grows out of the wall. When I lived in Israel, I actually had a picture of my favorite tree from Brooklyn. Yes, a tree grows in Brooklyn, that I had taken and I put on the wall so that I could remember. And it might sound a little sappy, pun intended. When I left Brooklyn and moved to Israel, I think I may have even kind of patted the tree. I'd love to say I hugged it. It was really big. I don't know if I actually hugged it, but I kind of, said goodbye to my tree, in the sense that we make these connections, which is amazing to think that as humans, we can connect to living things, but maybe living things that don't talk back to us. So just kind of saying about that. Rhonda, did you want to add anything in, please?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry, I was a few minutes late. So I'm from, I live in Wisconsin now, but I'm from the Chicago suburbs. And after a tremendous unexpected loss in my family, my husband and I took our newly minted bar mitzvah son to out west to Sequoia National Park. And just understanding what these trees were about. I really knew nothing about them before going, and seeing just what a miracle sequoia trees are, and their age, and how they grow, and how they continue growing through dramatic and traumatic times. It was really, really, for someone who's a pretty secular Jew, it was quite, it was incredible to see, some of God's miracles in these sequoia trees. And I was an English teacher at the time. Now I'm a Jewish educator. And I had my students write memoir poems, and mine was about the sequoia trees.
Amazing. That gave me chills. I want to say amen. And if ever you want to share your poem with us, we would love to see it. Not just me, but I'm speaking for everyone. Deborah, and then I have one thing I want to say too about that, Rhonda, too. Deborah, please. Oh, if you'll just come off mute, Deborah.
Duh. Thank you. I always wanted to live where there were more trees than people, and now I do. I live at 4,000 feet. I'd be doing this outside, but it's 30 degrees and there's snow and ice on the ground. But I love to go outside and breathe the clean air and just soak in God's creation, because I didn't move here to sit in the house, and yet I find myself doing that. So it's
Amazing. Amazing. It's a really good reminder for us, because when you live inside and you have everything that you need, and you just go out to get, your groceries or whatever, sometimes we can forget the power of just actually stopping and looking around. And we do have a great text about that from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, and I'm not sure if it's right here. I'll find it. If not, I'll share it. So remind me if I get distracted and I don't get to that text. I want to make sure I share that with you, Deborah, because you bring that up. Diamond, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to attend this class. And again, yes, my name is Diamond. So in pertains to the subject that we're talking about, I haven't been able to get out much, but when I do sit outside with my son, I'm grateful that I look at the tree and learning the tree's cycle. If you live in an area where you get all 4 seasons, you see the tree cycle. And I feel like that is the tree of life. That is the cycle of life. It is a visual reminder, just seeing that. So it actually teaches me about, how I need to conduct myself, and how we do go through cycles of life. And so it just definitely gives me that connection. And sometimes I am just grateful to be able to walk out and see the tree and experience the 4 seasons.
Amen. That is so beautiful and so true. And I love the whole concept of looking at the cycle of the tree, and also thinking of the cycle of our own lives and the cycle of the Jewish calendar, which is really, to me, very exciting to make all that connection. Diamond, thank you. Susan, please.
Sorry, I'm eating.
Are you going to share those with all of us? Are you going to share?
Yes. I live in Arizona, and I have citrus trees in my backyard.
Wow.
Some are better than the others, but unlike honey and the carob tree, they bore fruit far earlier than 70 years. So it's nice to go out and pick a fresh grapefruit.
Amazing. I love that. I love that you also, Susan, referenced one of the texts on here. So one of the great things about our time today and Talmud in general is that while we can focus on text and talk about it, when you're looking at a page of Talmud, sometimes your eyes may wander to look what interests you. And so I hope that as we've been talking, some of you may have found certain texts in this whole page that speaks to you. And Susan, since you mentioned one of my favorite texts that we have, and we have that in the top left corner, I think it would be great if we want to read that. And then I'd also love to know if there's any other texts anyone has seen while we're talking that stands to that. And before we do that, though, I just want to say one thing, because I think in some of our conversation we just had, you all brought it to my mind, and I want to share a personal story, which is that when my father, a blessed memory, passed away, received beautiful cards and lots of love and, you know, fruit and gifts and whatever it is. But I think what actually, one of the things that meant the most was that a former student of mine who I had worked with as she journeyed to Judaism sent me I received a certificate in the mail that she had planted a tree in my father's memory. And it was so unexpected. You know, of all the people I would have thought who might have given me something, I wasn't expecting anything from her, not even a card or, you know, and the fact that she knew it and she said it was just so beautiful. And to know that a tree was planted in my father's memory and continues to grow. In fact, when my husband and I got married, we did not do traditional wedding invitations. Instead, we actually did a program that the Jewish National Fund at least had at the time, where every single person, instead of an invitation, got a tree certificate. And so that was our big, both tzedakah as well as our way of making sure that our love continued to grow and blossom. And actually, I want to share another very personal story, and I hope it's okay that I'm being so personal, is that a year ago, I suffered a miscarriage. And while I received a lot of beautiful notes and kind love and support, a former congregant sent me a plant and sent me this beautiful succulent that had about 5 little succulents growing out of it. And it's now a year later, and this plant is out of control. What was like 5 little succulents is now maybe, you know, 12 or 15. And I really need to replant it. And I've often struggled with what do I do with this plant? Because on one hand, when I see it, I think of the reason why she bought it for me. And on the other hand, I think of this amazing miracle that it has continued to grow and blossom. And looking at this, it's able to bring me both some comfort. It does bring me pain because I think about why I have it in my home, but I also think of the sense of resiliency. And that's something I hope we can find when we look at our environment, because we can look and see all of the problems, but there's also such a strong sense of resiliency so often in our environment. And what if we can look at that and then have it come back to us? The same way we look at this tree above me, this is growing out of the western wall of the Kotel. And I don't know, Rabbi Streifer, if you even know what kind of tree this plant is. It's a very specific type of plant. And this is actually a caper bush. And if you look throughout the western wall, there are caper bushes that are growing out of it. And I've heard it told many times to make this incredible analogy between a caper bush and the Jewish people. One is it will grow anywhere, even out of the wall like this. Another analogy is that when you eat a caper, sometimes it can taste great and sometimes it might be a little bitter. You know, you never quite know exactly what you're going to get. A little humor there. But also another powerful thing about the caper bush is it's actually got hooks on it, thorns. And if you put your hand into a caper bush, it will easily go in. But when you try to take your hand out, that's when you might get cut on the thorns. So I love that as this beautiful analogy that you can come and be part of the Jewish people, and we want you to be part and to be with us, and it'll be sweet and wonderful and growing, but don't try to leave. Don't try to leave. Okay, I see some hands, so let me go to those. Sarah, please.
2 things. One is I'm lucky enough to live in Bloomington, Indiana, where 25 years ago now, we founded a completely volunteer, manned and done community orchard that is open to everyone and anyone. We are a model across the world for what we have done and what we have sustained. And that's one joy. It's on an acre of land that was given to us by the Parks Department. The second is that while we think of trees as what we see, what we don't see is under the ground and the incredible mycorrhizal network that connects all trees to one another. And for me, that's another huge piece of why it matters, particularly to the Jewish people, that we are all connected, no matter what we look like, what we do, we are connected.
That is beautiful, Sarah. I love that. And the power, we can talk also just simply about the power of roots in our lives as well. And what does it mean to have our Jewish roots, to have our roots being connected. Even in Hebrew, we talk about the power of roots, even with the Hebrew, the word shoresh, and how so much of our language blossoms from there. And I love that you live in Bloomington, Indiana. I had to say Bloomington there. Okay. Well, thank you, Sarah. Rabbi Schreifer, please.
Yeah, you made me think of two quick things that I had never put together this way before. One is that when I was about 5 years old, my dad planted 3 trees at our house in Jackson, Mississippi, one for each me and my 2 siblings. And not long ago, I actually went and looked on Google Maps, and they're so tall now. This is now 40 years later, those trees are so much taller. And it's the passing of time that I think trees remind us both of sort of like how quickly and how slowly time passes. And then the other quick story is that when my grandmother died in 1997, my mother kept some of her plants alive and has kept repotting them. And they've kept their succulents as well. They've kept sort of growing and spreading. And when my parents came to visit me here in Canada a year or two ago, they brought one of those plants. They drove and they brought one of those plants across. So I now have a plant in my house that my grandmother planted more than 20 years ago. And so I feel like she's here with me, even though she died almost 2 decades ago.
Amazing. Beautiful. May her memory always be for a blessing. Cheryl, please.
So what I have, I'm an artist, and a lot of the things that I make are Jewish. I do mostly paper cutting and colored pencil, a lot of times combined. And this one right here is the story of Honi. All the little stuff in the middle is the story. And let me get it, see if we can get it so it's.
I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and that will make it bigger. Okay.
Yeah, see if we can get it so it's clear. I'm not sure if I need to go closer or farther.
Maybe a little farther, but it is beautiful. And Cheryl, if you have a website, we'd love to look at your work, or an Instagram or anything, if you want to put that in the chat. That's so powerful. Would you like to read?
I took the story, I took my website down because it was old and needed work, and I have not put a new one up yet. But all the black is the paper cut.
Wow.
Around the story. A carob tree and another little carob tree waiting to be planted, and Honi sleeping.
Wow, I have chills. I would love to get a clear picture of that. If you'll maybe if you can even take a picture and send that, I would love to see that.
I actually have it on if I can get to my.
Cheryl, if you can maybe put it into the chat later, I think some of us would love to see it as Rabbi Emily continues toward her conclusion here.
Thanks, Cheryl. And I want to thank everyone for putting stuff in the chat. What I love, and I hope that this is okay with everybody, I can see today we actually did maybe more of the hope part than the text part. We did a little bit more of the tikva than the text, but I hope as well that you got something out of that as well. And time always goes way too fast with you, Rabbi Streifer, but and all of these wonderful people. And Bruce, I can't wait, as I said, to look at that link that you sent. I'm really grateful people are sharing in the chat. If anyone, do we have a volunteer to read though that passage on Honi that's in the text? I'll make it larger. If anyone would like to read that aloud. Okay, Susan, thank you. Let me
You'll
go
need
back.
to share your screen again.
Share that again. And also Rabbi Streifer put the link to this wonderful document in the chat. And I don't know, Rabbi Streifer, if there's a way that we can even put it on the La Asok page or something. We know that the RAC has been a partner with you as well for some of the great teaching you're doing.
Okay, are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready. Here we go. On the
Okay.
top left, if you're following along.
While the sage Honi was walking along a road, he saw a man planting a carob tree. Honi asked him, "How long will it take for this tree to bear fruit?" 70 years, replied the man. Honi then asked, "Are you so healthy a man that you expect to live that length of time and eat its fruit?" The man answered, "I found a fruitful world because my ancestors planted it for me. Likewise, I am planting for my children."
Amen.
Amen. And you know, that says to me, that is Torah.
Yes. Amen. And the Torah, of course, we call the tree of life. So all tied in together. You know, this text is as well. I love it because the language in this translation too is that he said his ancestors built for him, or he founded a world because of their ancestors. And so it reminds us it's not just for our own children, but so that there will be a world for those to come after us is the hope and the reminder. I just hope also that you had a chance to look at the text. I'm going to just point out in the remaining like 30 seconds that I have, and it always goes by so fast. I just want to show a few more things real quick. This is one of my favorite passages, this text right here, if you can see my cursor. There is no plant without an angel in heaven tending it and telling it, grow, grow, grow. And I like to think about that. Sometimes we think of our own angels. If an angel can tell a plant to grow, a blade of grass to grow, then we have to remember that there is that support for us as well. Also right here from Avot to Rabbi Natan, Shimon Bar Yochai taught that if you are holding a sapling in your hand and someone says that the Messiah has drawn near, first plant the sapling and then go greet the Messiah. So just the power for all of us to be aware of the hope of the future, but also our job to help create that future as well. So with that, I hope I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute to be able to close out with everyone. I hope that you have enjoyed being together and reflecting. I also hope that you get a chance to look at some of these texts and to start preparing yourself for the holiday of Tu Bishevat. If you've never celebrated before, I really hope that it will be something new and special. And if you are celebrating it again, I hope it will still be something new and special for you. There's lots of great texts in the chat. I saw some people put some suggestions about books. Depending on the community you're in, you may be able to find a Tu Bishevat Seder, which has a lot of beautiful mysticism in it. And Rabbi Streifer, if there's a way for me to even share some of the text that I didn't get to share, I would love to as well. And I know I'm over. If you'll permit me just one more real quick, Rabbi Streifer, real quick. Okay, got the thumbs up there. So these are just some of the other passages that I had put together, and I want to just share these so that You'll have some texts to think of you. Another midrash, if you remove one nut from a pile of walnuts, every nut in the pile will be shaken. Similarly, if one person sins, the whole community will suffer. And I want to give one more passage real quick. This one is really one of my absolute favorite, to remind us of our power and to remind us of what we do together. So anybody want to quickly read this one for us? I know I'm out of time, but I'll anybody I can, let me see, any hands of someone to pick on real quick? Okay, Rabbi Streifer, please.
All right, I'll read it. No part of the date palm is wasted. The fruit is eaten. The embryonic branches, lulav, are used for the 4 species of Sukkot. The mature fronds can cover a sukkah. The fibers between the branches can make strong ropes. The leaves can be woven into mats and baskets. The trunks can be used for rafters. Similarly, no one is worthless in Israel. Some are scholars, some do good deeds, and some work for social justice. From Midrash Numbers Rabbah. Emily, you're on mute. Are you?
Thank you so much. Similarly, my friends, may we always remember how important we each are and how powerful we are and what we give back to the world. May we find hope in the beautiful environment in which we live, and may we bring hope to our world through our actions as well. Keni Hiratzon, may that be God's will, and let us say,
Amen. Let me say thank you to Rabbi Emily Losben-Ostrov for this wonderful teaching. And with that, let me say happy beginning of Shvat as we opened the month of Shvat yesterday. And I hope you can find some life amidst the deep freeze. And I mean that both literally and maybe psychologically as well. And I look forward to seeing all of you again next week. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much. Wonderful program.
thank you.